I would like to welcome Todd. Welcome, Todd.
Hey Taylor, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. How are you? Where are you? I see you're in an airport or
I am actually in Las Vegas for a work thing, so just taking some time to hop on. Super excited.
wow, great. Vegas. Woo! That's awesome. Well, thank you for joining. I know that it's been a busy week for you, so I'm excited to talk about your specific topic because we haven't dove into that at all, but I think it ties perfectly into purpose. Let me just introduce everybody to you really quick. So, Todd is a world traveler, a writer, and an entrepreneur. After college in 2013, he quit his 9 to 5, like many of us are doing around the world right now. And at a commodities trading company, though, to go and work on a cruise ship of all places and travel the world. This is where he first really discovered his passion for adventure, and started learning who he was and what made him tick. 9 years and 58 countries later, he has the Of Whiskey and Words travel blog, along with being the COO of Lifted Logic, which is a digital agency in Kansas City. Through these platforms, he uses his knowledge of travel, SEO, and marketing to help inspire people to travel and to pursue their passion and enjoy a nice glass of whiskey along the way. So thanks for joining, Todd. I'm curious, what led you to quit your 9 to 5 all the way back when, right? And move into, well, go to a cruise ship of all places, right?
Yeah, so long story short, I had gone to college with the intention of going to law school. That's what I thought I was going to do since I was probably five. Took the LSAT, got in, thought maybe it might be best to defer for a year. So in that deferred year, I took a job at a commodities trading company, and this was 2012. So like any job you could get, like toward the end of like the recession, was like a good job, especially when you're 22, fresh out of college. And I'd been there about a year, and was talking with one of my friends, like, "Hey, you deferred law school. Are you gonna go?" And I'm like, "Well, I haven't thought about that in a year, so I probably shouldn't go." And then I had stayed in Omaha, Nebraska, where I went to college at Creighton, for an extra year because the girl I was dating at the time was still in school, and so like I wanted to stay close so I could like stay with her. We broke up during that year, and I was kind of like, "Why am I still here?" I grew up in Nebraska. I'd gone to like Creighton and Omaha, and I never really gone anywhere else. And so like, every day for like 6 or 7 months, I'd go into my job, I'd punch the clock, and I hated it. I'm like, there has to be more to life than this. So I was a philosophy major in college, and like I just sat down with myself, and I'm like, what do you really want out of life right now? And I wanted to work with people because I was sitting basically in a cube, and I wanted to travel because I'd left Nebraska, but I never like lived somewhere else. It was always like a short trip here, a short trip there. And so those are like the two big factors. And so I just started Googling travel jobs, and I applied for every single one I could. And the first one to call me back was a cruise ship. It was Princess Cruise Lines. And at the end of the interview, they were like, "Hey, just so you know, this is for our sister company in Australia. Is that okay?" And I was like, "Yes, that's exactly what I want." And so I had never been to Australia, and I'd never been on a cruise ship. And it just seemed like the thing I should do. So I did it, and that kind of just changed everything. Um, while I was on the cruise ship, I started the blog mostly as a way to keep my friends and family aware of like what was going on and like where I was and like that I was alive, because there wasn't as much social media stuff around back then, and it just kind of evolved and morphed over the last 9, 10 years.
Right. You were probably pioneering, like on the leading edge of that when it was all coming up into the space
Yeah,
of how we communicate. Yeah.
if I had known what I know now then, it would have saved me a lot of time and energy over the last couple of years.
What is it then? What is it that you wish you had known then? I'm
I wish
curious.
I had a better understanding of like SEO and marketing, and like how you can use those things to turn a blog into a business. For years, I didn't really see it that way. It was just kind of like a weird hobby. And I don't think when I was 23, no one was really, it wasn't a thing people did. We're being travel bloggers and like making money and being digital nomads. Like those weren't really things yet. And so I never really had it in my head that like if I did things a certain way, this could be my actual career and I could just do whatever I wanted and travel and like write. So now I know those things, and like over the last couple of years, I've been able to do a lot more of that stuff.
Yeah, wow. That's really interesting. I mean, as a fellow traveler, I've done my fair share of living abroad and traveling the world as well. This is quite a big moment in your life when you take that first jump going abroad,
Yeah.
and it's very overwhelming because there's all these new um experiences, all these new things, foods, tastes, smells, people. It's very uncomfortable. So I'm curious, how did this tie into it, bringing it back to what this summit's all about, purpose, right? How did this tie into purpose when it's so uncomfortable to take that jump?
I think back then I was too stupid or too young, whatever you want to say, to really realize kind of what I was doing. I had a lot of older people in my life be like, "This is a mistake. You shouldn't do this. You're giving up your job to go work on a cruise ship. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you should just be happy with what you have." And I just, it didn't feel right. Going to do this felt right. And I think I've always been really good at kind of chasing after what I think I want and then figuring the rest of it as I go. And so kind of just jumping in with 2 feet didn't really give me an opportunity to really be that scared. I had like fully just like, I had like a freak out kind like a couple weeks before I went because it was like, oh my God, this is really happening. Like maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe everyone's right. And like one of my buddies, Zoran, talked me off the ledge. He's like, dude, you need to do this. Like there's a reason why you wanted to do it. Like don't get scared. Just like see it through and like you can always come back. And obviously that one decision changed the course of my entire life in like the best possible way.
Right, you became a full on it like entrepreneur, and you're doing two companies right now, right? You're including your blog and then your tech company. I mean, it's amazing that you've been able to pivot and start actually living and walking that vision that you're sharing and you're preaching on your blog, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And
So
I was
go
just saying,
ahead.
it doesn't really happen overnight. It's not like you wake up one day and all of a sudden everything's different. You just make a lot of choices every day that you hope are leading in the direction you want to go in. And then you look back and it's really easy to connect those dots and be like, holy crap, I'm here now because of this, this, and this. But in the moment, there's not this just you're a finished product. You're never a finished
You have
product.
it all, or
Yeah.
right. So then what is it? I mean, there must have been moments, you said you had your freak out, right? Or there must have been other moments that were very uncomfortable that maybe you wanted to quit, right? Or go back to where it was safe. What do you do when those thoughts start to come up, or that phase, that feeling shows up in your life, in your mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely throughout that journey. And even now, there's definitely times when you have that thought, is this what I want to be doing? Or is this the best use of my time? Or am I getting everything out of life? For me, my biggest fear has always been accepting complacency. Like I never want to be the kind of person who just exists. And so I think for me, I always wanted to push and push forward. And like I think when you're a little uncomfortable, it's not great, but it's a good sign. It means that your comfort zone is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like you look back again and like all of a sudden your comfort zone is huge. And like that once again doesn't happen overnight. It's just being okay with being uncomfortable, which I think a lot of people have been told that like you don't want to be uncomfortable and that's bad and that's hard. But like life is bad and hard sometimes and you push through and you come out better.
Right. Yeah. I want to mention, as we're talking about this, Haley D in the chat says, this is very interesting as we're talking about it. So this is exactly where she is right now. Today, right now, is her last day at her corporate job, and she's leaving to travel soon. It's nice to hear the reassurance. And so as we're talking about this is very relevant to what many people are experiencing in the world right now. So I'm curious, as Haley's here, what kind of tips do you have for her? She's kind of jumping off this metaphorical cliff,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Haley, I got goosebumps by the way, just like hearing that question. Um, as someone who's kind of been through it, you need to keep checking in with yourself. And I know maybe that sounds really silly, but you're going to be pushed in weird ways that you could never anticipate right now. And you're going to be in some situations that are awesome and the next day they're terrible. And you just have to keep belief in like what you're doing, that it's what you need to do. And that doesn't mean you need to travel forever. If for you, it might be a week, it might be 10 years. Everyone's different. If you would have told me in 2013 that after 6 years of traveling every 3 to 6 months in new countries, that I'd be tired of it, I would have told you you're full of it. But everything kind of has a timeline in your life. And everyone kind of has to do that to their own scale. So listen to your own internal voice, because no one else knows that more than you. And give yourself time to actually hear it. There's gonna be a lot of like outside distractions, a lot of other people telling you what you should do or where you should go or like how you should live, and like they're not you, and they don't have that feeling that you have when you get to do something that you love.
Right. Yeah, that's powerful, especially because traveling is such a, as we're all on this journey to connect more to ourselves, right? To be living life on the terms of our own purpose. Traveling is such an abrupt, very strong way of committing to that, because you're throwing yourself out of pretty much everything that's comfortable in your life. And going to a new country is disruptive, right? It's very disruptive.
Especially when you go by yourself. And like for me, it was probably the greatest thing I ever did. It taught me to be really self-reliant in the best possible way. I've been to Burning Man a few times, and they have like the 10 principles, and one of them is radical self-reliance. That's always been the one that spoke most to me. And that's not saying like I obviously don't like rely on other people, but when you travel by yourself, you're the map person. You're the person picking the restaurants. You're the person like picking the hostel. You're doing all these things and making those decisions. And it teaches you that you have to be able to rely on yourself. And the more you do it, the more you trust yourself. And so I did that for 6 years. And by the time I got back, I felt really confident that when I made a decision, it was the right one, because I'd been making decisions for myself for so long, which obviously you don't really get to do that much when you're a kid. And then in college, it's just a whirlwind of what everyone else is saying, trying to be cool and trying to fit that stuff in. And so that 5 years was just me basically by myself. For every 6 months, I would go from the cruise ship. Then I taught English in Prague. And then I lived in Melbourne. And so it was really cool for me, because I got 6 months or whatever to kind of like work on and grow. And then when I left that place, I got to take all the good things I learned with me and leave all the bad ones. And then when I met new people, like they saw that version of me. And over 5 years, I just really honed into the person I really wanted to be. And I think when you spend that time alone, it's really important to ask yourself, what do you believe in and why? And after that, you have those kind of two things. A lot of other things don't really bother you. You can kind of get through anything.
Right. It sounds like you're talking about a pretty big process of unlearning what you thought the world was and who you thought you were in the world, and relearning what you actually want to be in the world. And so I'm curious, as you're unlearning, right? That's part of the discomfort, because you're leaving behind what you know.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest things that you had to unlearn in that process of traveling?
Yeah, I think for me, some of the biggest things I think this sounds bad. Happiness is overrated, right? Like it's not, and this is obviously why we're here, right? Like happiness is like this fleeting thing that we all want to feel because like it's easy and it makes us feel good, but you can't build a life on that. You want to build on life on purpose, which is why I'm super happy to be here. You want to build on life on like giving your gifts away in a way that you can like serve others or serve the world. And like, that's a lot of times where you find your purpose. And I think I was a very loud, talkative child. So learning to kind of shut up and listen was probably another really big thing that happened to me over those 5-6 years, or all in my 20s, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. To shut up and listen. That's a very abrupt way to say, okay, this is how you start being generous, right? This is how you start seeing what people are needing and how you can be of service, which also helps you create a community, right? And so I'm curious, when you're traveling, how do you make or create a community when you're the new one, right? You don't have somebody to bring along with you. How do you start creating that community? And then how do you use that community to support you in those hard times?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things in the world is making friends. I think like everyone has something to give or something to teach you if you just shut up and listen, right? And so I think for me, it's always been, don't be an asshole, like be approachable. And a lot of times people are really nice and friendly, but like they're not always good at taking the first step. So learning to say, hi, my name is Todd, or hi, my name is whatever it is, and kind of doing that first step for them and kind of meeting them more than halfway, and then taking it as like your goal to kind of take them out of their shell and like become friends. And that's always been something I've been pretty okay at doing. But it can drain on you. So like after 5 or 6 years, that's how I kind of knew it was time to come home, when the idea of living in a town with some of my college friends was exciting, because I didn't have to go out every week and be like, hi, I'm Todd. Hi, I'm Todd. Like, what's going on? But just being willing to take that first step, like don't be too proud Sometimes people are like, well, I was here first. They should come talk to me. Like, who cares? Like, go make friends. And then I've been able to leverage that kind of everywhere I've been. Me and my friends have a travel Facebook group at this point. um, when we were at Tomorrowland in Europe in like 2014, that was back when like the song "Don't Kill My Bitch, Don't Kill My Vibe" was like really popular. And so that became like our theme song for that entire 3 days. And it's like the group's name is "Don't Kill My Vibe." And like now it's like 65 of us, because like every year or two we'll take a trip, and like I invite Nick, and then Nick's like, "Can I bring my one friend from Europe?" And I'm like, "Cool, sure." So the group has just grown and grown and grown. And now it's really easy to be like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Belgium. Can I stay at your place?" And they're like, "Yeah, come back. I haven't seen you in so long." And like people want that community, and they want to feel good and like feel connected and like learn stuff from other people. And you only get that way if you're being really open.
Right. I love that you can go anywhere around the world almost and reach out to somebody that is a friend. So it really helps you see what I'm hearing from you, that things aren't so scary as you're exploring your purpose in these new places. It's building yourself that support system to be able to go beyond what you thought
Yeah, I mean,
was
I think
possible.
what scares most people is just like the unknown. And like you'll
Mm.
hear that a lot before you go out and take off and go somewhere. It's like, "Oh, I heard this place is super dangerous," or "I heard this," or "I heard that." It's like, "Well, have you been there?" Well, no. Then like, while I appreciate your advice, like I'm going to make my own decision. And obviously you should always listen to things, but always make your decisions for yourself based on what you know. And for me, I've always found the places I go and the people I meet to be a lot less scary than the people around me make them out to be before I go.
Interesting. It's funny you say that, because when I was moving to Vietnam, my grandparents weren't so happy about that because it's, kind of dangerous and it's a different country. It's in Asia. It's not as developed, quote unquote. And then when I got there, I was teaching English for about a year in Ho Chi Minh. And my students who wanted to study abroad in the US were starting to say, well, I think it's too dangerous to go to the US right now. It was a period when the gun shootings were happening all over the country. And so their parents were saying, no, sorry, you can't go to the US anymore because it's just too dangerous to go, which hit me like, that's pretty crazy because it's in America, we're thinking Vietnam is too dangerous. And so by traveling, that allows us to kind of take down all these stereotypes and these rules or these assumptions that we've built, you know, in life that stop us from going where we want to go, which is a very literal form of what we're talking about today, right?
There's an old Haitian proverb that says like we see from where we stand. And if you're always standing in the same spot, you're always going to see the same way. So I think for me, for a really long time, it was how can I take in as much stuff as I can so I can either, if someone says something I know is not true, I can like be like, no, in my experience, this is what happened. Like I'm on a crusade to kind of like correct ignorance in some ways, based on like at least my experiences. And I want everyone to get out of their own way sometimes and go see something else. Because I think when you do and you come back, you're just a little different. And like sometimes the world needs everyone to be just a little different.
Right. Yeah. And I kind of, okay, so I really want to talk about that part of it. What is on the other side, right? A lot of people are pioneering what they want to be doing in the world. There's a lot of transitions coming right now, whether it's, the political level, the education, the health, the climate, right? There's a lot of things moving around. What is on the other side when you've got that connection to self and that purpose?
I think honestly, peace, and maybe this sounds really weird. And peace doesn't mean happiness, just so we're all on the same page. Peace is like, even when you're in it and you're in the struggle and today sucks, like, in your heart that you're doing the right thing and that you're spending your time how you want to be spending it. So it's like this like peace confidence where I know not every day is necessarily going to be great, but I know I'm on the right track. And for me, for a really, really long time, when I decided not to go to law school, I basically, at that point in my life, I was 22. I had the next 30 years planned. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden that was gone. And like what I thought I was going to do for 15 years, 20 years, all of a sudden just blank. And it was like terrifying because I'm like, shit, I had basically gone on autopilot with this dream. So I didn't really have to think anymore. And I could just do this because everyone told me I should do that. And so now I call this my my chess principle. And this probably sounds weird. If anyone plays chess, basically, when you play, like I'll make a move and then like I'll be waiting for you to make a move and I'll basically run through 30 moves in my head. And then as soon as you make one move that I didn't anticipate, everything is shot. So now like how I kind of try to live is I try to live 2 to 3 moves ahead where I'm always going toward what I think I want. But I also have the ability to pivot because like I don't know what the future holds. Dan Gilbert is a psychologist from Harvard. He wrote the book Stumbling on Happiness. And like one of his big points is talking about how often we make choices for our future selves. And then we get to the future and that's not what we want. And so that always stuck with me where I'm like, why am I making decisions for 45-year-old Todd when I'm 23? And that doesn't mean like you should not think about the future. It just means that you should be going toward what you think you want, but still have room for some variety or some different choices.
That's so interesting. Yeah, we do try to make decisions for our future selves all the time, which is ridiculous because we don't know what the context or the situation is going to be. And so it is about coming back to where you are right now and what you're wanting to create in this moment with what you have. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm curious, as a traveler, what's your 2 best experiences like for excitement and like joy that you've had in traveling? Like what are just your 2 favorite that come to the top of your mind?
Yeah. And so I learned a long time ago, at least for me, that, and this kind of I guess goes into what we were talking about earlier, I very rarely when I look back on a trip, I very rarely think about the things I did as much as I do like the people I met and like the memories I made with like those people and like that stuff. I kind of hit me a couple years ago when I was looking back at photos and I'd spend so much time taking photos like the Eiffel Tower and like all these like things. But the ones that like I always looked at were the ones of like me and my friends or like me and my family or like us taking a selfie or just like silly moments that aren't necessarily like the big thing. So I think for me anymore, I get so much joy out of planning the trip and then getting to take people who I know normally wouldn't do this thing. I just got back from Peru. We did like a 2-week trip and there was like 9 of us. And it was the first time someone had ever left the country before. And like they definitely would have gone to hiking to trail Machu Picchu, like if I hadn't planned the trip. And so for me now, it's not like I have to be in the front enjoying all this stuff. I get so much pleasure knowing that they're there enjoying it and seeing the world. And that's just kind of gone across a lot of things. Like I don't always remember the things, but I remember like those people in those moments.
That is so cool. That is really a beautiful story. So that brings us actually right to I know you're offering a gift today.
Yeah.
What is that gift?
Yeah. So the gift I want to give, and it's honestly more for me than it is for whoever gets it. I want to plan a trip for someone. So I know that sometimes the hardest part of planning a trip is like the logistics. And I've, like to Taylor's point earlier, I've been to 58 countries. I've traveled a lot of different ways, different styles. For me, picking things is really easy and I enjoy it. Like I love researching, like what do people do? Would this work? Like what am I interested in? Like all that stuff brings me so much joy. And so if I can use that skill to help someone go somewhere and change how they see things, that's what I want to do. So there's a link on my website, which I think Taylor, you'll be sharing.
We dropped it right in the chat for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love when things work.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to, if anybody's interested in that, you can go there, fill out the form at the bottom, and I'll be making a selection here in the next couple of weeks. I'll basically just kind of like touch base with you, kind of learn like kind of like how long you have, where you're interested in going, what you're into, and then we'll kind of just like work back and forth. I'll present you a bunch of options, and hopefully help you plan a badass trip. That's really all it is for me at this point. I think it's because like being from Nebraska, not a lot of people get out. And so I always want to be someone who enables people to kind of go see the world or change their point of view or expand it one way or the other.
Yeah. I'm curious, as we're wrapping up here, why do you think it's so important for people to see and experience the world beyond their own cities, right? Beyond their own states or countries even?
Yeah. I think it's because it gives you data points that help you make better decisions. And I guess what I'm saying by that is I have one of my best friends in the world from high school. He's still in Nebraska. He went there for college, never really left. And for me, it's always been like, I don't care if that's where you end up, but you don't have anything to compare it to. So like you might be raised a certain way or in a certain religion or a certain political view, and everything around you says that's the only thing there is. When you travel and you meet different people and different religions or different political views or different races or whatever that is, all of a sudden there's a new data point that you should take in and be like, hey, I know that I was raised this way or I did something this way, but I see that you do it this way. Maybe we're both right, or maybe neither of us are. I don't really know. And I think at this time in the world, there's so much like polarizing opinions that everyone has to have an opinion about everything. And so I think anytime you can take a step back and be like, hey, maybe I don't know as much about this as I thought I did, or hey, maybe there is another way to do this. And I think that just leads to understanding and love. And like, what else would we want?
Yeah, and I think that that ties in perfectly to the point you made earlier about how through traveling you were able to get really good at listening and really good at allowing, right? You had to unlearn that you talked a lot as a kid, right?
Uh,
But traveling really helps you understand the world more from your own perspective without I'm also hearing that it allows you to stop judging yourself so much because you can go beyond what you think is possible. You see that there's more beyond what you knew.
there's this really cool like thought that one of the best things about traveling is you are who you are in that moment in that day. So when you're in your hometown or college or with your college friends, your older people you've known for a long time, they kind of expect you, in my experience at least, to expect you to kind of behave in that way that you were or you always have been. It's kind of like how parents always see their kids as children. But like when you're traveling and like you meet someone in a hostel for the first time, like their only knowledge of you is that day and like who you are. So if like that day you're the funnest person in the world, to them you're the funnest person in the world. They don't know that like at home you just went through a breakup or like you just lost your job or like all this other baggage stuff. So it allows you kind of that freedom to really be who you want to be. And then hopefully over time you find out kind of what those things are and you're able to pull that back to your everyday life. You don't have to go on an extended 5-year trip to do that. Just a little bit here and there, and just remember what you learn and be true to yourself.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Todd, for sharing this and taking the time to come and share all this knowledge, this wisdom that you have from jumping off that metaphorical cliff very early on, by the way, before social media, before, I mean, today it's a lot easier with being able to order everything to your door for Amazon, which you need to go to a country that might have malaria or, mosquitoes, right? And so it's amazing that you did that so early on and that you've been able to continue paying this forward. And for people like Haley who are just about to go on this journey, it's pretty remarkable that this is the movement you're building. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Everyone just trust yourself and like don't get frustrated if you don't know what you want to do right away or right now, and just like keep chasing it. There's nothing wrong with that. And in 10 years, it might be different. There's no rule saying you only get one purpose in life. So never stop exploring and keep being who you are and who you want to be.
Wonderful. Thank you. Amazing, Todd. Well, wishing you a lovely rest of your trip in Vegas. It's
Cool.
great weather there. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to create next. So
Yeah,
we'll be in
yeah.
touch, definitely.
Obviously, anyone hit me up on social media, Instagram, my blog, whatever you guys need. I'm always happy to just talk ideas or anything I can do to help. Just let me know.
Thank
But
you.
thanks,
You're
Taylor.
amazing, Todd. You're amazing. All right. Have a wonderful day.